What if we got a Men in Black crossover film with 21 Jump Street that would have been called MIB 23? Well, we almost did. Not only that, but the first Men in Black almost starred Chris O'Donnell and Clint Eastwood, while the second film would have focused on Agent J and Agent L, before Tommy Lee Jones was convinced to return. To find out how we went from all of that to the movies we know, let's dive in and explore the original plans for the first three Men in Black films, and also take a look at what could have been Men in Black 23. The first Men in Black is a sci-fi classic that helped cement Will Smith as a Hollywood leading man, but he almost wasn't in it. The role of Agent J was originally offered to Friends star David Schwimmer, fresh off of starring in his first feature film The Pallbearer, a box office flop. Sensing blood in the water, Miramax tried to lock him into a low-end, fixed three-picture deal. Schwimmer reluctantly agreed, but only if they let him direct the first film. Miramax relented, and Schwimmer chose to make Since You've Been Gone, about a 10-year class reunion. He cast his friends from his theater company, many of whom quit their jobs to join the 6-week shoot in Chicago over the summer during his friend's hiatus. Then Schwimmer got the offer to star in Men in Black. Schwimmer ultimately decided to turn Men in Black down, worried that his relationship with all his friends who agreed to help out probably would have ended. Sadly for Schwimmer, his film never even made it to theaters, and was eventually released direct-to-TV. Meanwhile, Men in Black became a massive hit, and Will Smith became a movie star. My career would have taken a very different trajectory, Schwimmer would admit years later. After reading the first Men in Black script, director Barry Sonnenfeld's wife, who was a big fan of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, immediately suggested Will Smith for the lead role. Sonnenfeld agreed, but there was one major obstacle. Producer Steven Spielberg wanted Chris O'Donnell, who was riding high after starring as Dick Grayson in Batman Forever. Spielberg, though, was convinced O'Donnell was the right choice, and instructed Sonnenfeld to take him out to dinner and persuade him to join the film. While at dinner, with his heart set on Will Smith, Sonnenfeld told O'Donnell that he wasn't a very good director, and he didn't think the script was very good, and if he had other offers, he should take them. The next day, O'Donnell turned down the role, opening the door for Will Smith. However, there was another problem. Will Smith didn't want to do it. Coming off Independence Day, he didn't want to do two sci-fi films back to back. So Spielberg summoned him to his house, flying him there in a helicopter, and in no uncertain terms told Smith that he's doing it and to trust him. Smith, after seeing the posters to massive hits like Jaws and Jurassic Park on the walls of Spielberg's house, agreed. For the part of K, the studio wanted Clint Eastwood, but Sonnenfeld pushed for Tommy Lee Jones. However, Sonnenfeld almost shot himself in the foot, because Jones got director approval, and nearly didn't approve Sonnenfeld for the job. Once they started shooting, Jones tried to be funny, since the movie was a comedy and was loud and over the top, somewhat similar to how he played Two-Face. However, Sonnenfeld kept telling him to play the role deadpan and as businesslike as possible, arguing that would be infinitely funnier and a foil to Will Smith. Jones would reluctantly agree, but kept telling Sonnenfeld he felt the film wasn't funny. Even Jones' agent would call to complain that Will Smith was being allowed to be funny while Jones wasn't. But Sonnenfeld insisted that Jones was funny, just as the deadpan straight man. Despite being, in Sonnenfeld's words, a pain to work with, Jones ultimately played ball. In fact, he made key contributions to the script, often cutting entire monologues for Agent K and replacing them with a single look or gesture that conveyed more than words ever could. Once Jones saw the finished film, he finally got it, and realized how funny Sonnenfeld had made him, leading the two to get along great on the sequel. However, the plot to the first film was almost very different. The story was initially set across various locations throughout the United States, but Sonnenfeld shifted the setting entirely to New York City. He felt that if aliens were hiding on Earth, there was no better place for them to blend in unnoticed than in the chaos of Manhattan. Sonnenfeld also reimagined Agent J not as a Secret Service agent as originally written, but as a street-level NYPD cop. He wanted the film to have the gritty, grounded feel of The French Connection, but instead of chasing drug dealers, these beat cops were investigating aliens. Halfway through filming, it became clear that the original ending, an abstract debate between Agent J and the Bug about fear and the nature of the universe, was too talky and lacked the action needed for a satisfying climax to what was being marketed as an action-adventure movie. With just 1 week left before shooting the finale, the team turned to executive producer Steven Spielberg for help. He delivered two pitches. One involved Jay smashing open a Coca-Cola vending machine to lure the Bug with its established love for sugar water, and the other, which ultimately won out, had Jay taunting the Bug by stomping on cockroaches, playing into its massive inferiority complex. But swapping out the cerebral ending for something more action-heavy came at a cost. Literally. The new sequence required a full range of movement that the $1 million 20-foot animatronic Edgar Bug, painstakingly built by Rick Baker and his team, simply couldn't deliver. When Baker learned his creature would be replaced by a fully CGI version, it hit hard. Sonnenfeld later called it a turning point in the industry and the end of big animatronics. The new finale cost the production an additional $4.5 million, but gave Men in Black the high-stakes ending it needed. The film went through one final massive change after test screenings. Originally, the plot was far more convoluted. Two alien races, the Baltians and the Archelians, were locked in a war, battling on opposite sides of Earth over possession of a tiny but powerful galaxy. Edgar, the Bug, came to Earth to steal it, not just for the power, but to ensure the war would continue, allowing his species to thrive by feeding on the carnage. At MIB headquarters, the conflict was explained through dense exposition and diagrams showing the alien fleets in orbit. Characters constantly referenced the intergalactic war, but test audiences found it confusing and hard to follow, so the filmmakers simplified the story. Edgar now wanted the galaxy purely as a power source, and the Archelians threatened to destroy Earth to keep it from falling in his hands. To make the revised story work in the edit, the dialogue in the restaurant scene was changed to subtitled alien language. Frank the Pug's expository lines were rewritten and redubbed, and the MIB headquarters screen showing the war between the Archelians and the Baltians was replaced with a single image of an Archelian battlecruiser. Men in Black ends with Kay being neuralized and returning to civilian life, while Jay takes Linda Fiorentino's character Agent L under his wing, setting the stage for the two to star together in the sequel. Except that never happened. Realizing they had lightning in a bottle with Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, the filmmakers decided to bring Agent K back for the sequel, and Sonnenfeld didn't want it to star all three, nor did he want to kill off Linda on screen. Additionally, it's alleged that both Smith and Jones disliked working with Linda, and Jones only agreed to return if she wasn't invited back. However, the original script had Agent K returning much later in the story, and focused more on a romance between Agent J and Rosario Dawson's character. But after Wild Wild West, director Barry Sonnenfeld realized audiences didn't respond to Will Smith as a straight man, and without K, that's exactly what he was. So the script was rewritten to bring Tommy Lee Jones back earlier and downplay the love story in an attempt to recapture the dynamic that made the first film work. Famke Jensen was originally cast as the villain Sarlina, but dropped out due to a death in the family. She was replaced by Laura Flynn Boyle, allegedly at the insistence of her then boyfriend Jack Nicholson, who reportedly made it a condition for working with Sony on anger management. Boyle picked up a Razzie nomination for Worst Supporting Actress for her performance, and while Sonnenfeld would later say that she was funny, he felt the character wasn't menacing enough, something he would fix for the sequel. The ending to the film was also very different. Originally, Sarlina gives Johnny Knoxville's character a proton detonator to destroy MIB headquarters, while she goes after J and K. But in a last-minute twist, he returns and turns on her, killing her with the device instead. Having grown to love life on Earth and hoping to stay in the Men in Black's good graces, he earns Kay's trust and gets offered a job at the post office. Later, Jay agrees to Kay and Zed's offer to reunite with Laura using a space pod, only to end up inside the tiny locker at Grand Central Station, where he's worshipped by the C-18 locker aliens he met earlier. Kay then casually closes the locker and tells Jay to have fun. The studio took a much heavier hand in the production of MIB 2, putting immense pressure on Sonnenfeld to replicate the success of the original. Producers and studio executives were constantly hovering, bombarding him with notes and questions. The relentless scrutiny made it one of the most exhausting shoots of his career, so much so that eventually Sonnenfeld became convinced something was wrong and asked to be taken to the hospital, fearing he was having a heart attack. Ironically, one of the few bright spots during the troubled production was the spark of an idea that would later become Men in Black 3. While on set, Will Smith pitched Sonnenfeld a concept where something would happen to Agent K because of an alien, and he'd have to go back in time to save him, uncovering long-buried secrets in the process. That seed of an idea would eventually evolve into the third film in the franchise. When Men in Black 2 hit theaters, it fell short of the original, both at the box office and with critics and audiences. Many felt it was a hollow retread that not only lacked the charm of the first film, but also undercut its ending. Even the filmmakers acknowledged its shortcomings, which fueled their desire to return and redeem the franchise with a stronger third installment. As work began on the script for Men in Black 3, Sony discovered they could qualify for a substantial New York City tax credit, but only if production started before the end of the year. To take advantage of the incentive, the studio rushed the film into production, even though the script was far from finished. During filming in New York, Will Smith's massive two-story trailer drew backlash from local residents and business owners, who complained about the noise, the diesel fumes, and the way it disrupted foot traffic and hurt nearby businesses. The oversized setup was eventually forced to relocate, with Smith reportedly frustrated by the move, now stationed nearly a mile from the set. As production moved ahead on scenes taking place in the present day, Will Smith became increasingly vocal about concerns with the 1969 portion of the story. After filming the opening scenes with Tommy Lee Jones, the production paused to rewrite the parts of the film in the past, but because the beginning was already in the can, major story changes were limited. The rewrites dragged on, and with mounting delays, Sony executives raised the possibility of terminating the production since the tax credit that had initially justified the rushed start was now offset by the ballooning costs from the delays to rewrite the script. Not only that, but behind behind the scenes, creative tensions flared. Smith reportedly clashed with director Barry Sonnenfeld over casting the Colonel's son, advocating for his own son Jaden Smith to take the role. Sonnenfeld disagreed, ultimately casting Kay Martin instead. Further complications hit when Rip Torn, who played Agent Zed in the previous films, was arrested for drunkenly breaking into a Connecticut bank, although his lawyer claimed Torn mistakenly believed it was his home while in a drunken stupor. With Torn unavailable, the script was rewritten to kill off Zed. Meanwhile, production delays caused Alec Baldwin, originally cast as Chief X, the head of MIB in the 60s, to exit the project entirely, forcing the part to be recast. In the original script, Jay initially discovers that Kay has been erased from history when he enters MIB headquarters to find a different version of Kay played by Clint Eastwood, a nod to the studio's original choice for the role before Tommy Lee Jones was cast. The original ending also differed significantly. Instead of wrapping at the pie shop, the finale also took place at MIB HQ, where Kay sternly asked Jay if he changed anything else in the past, noting that the smallest change could have enormous repercussions on the future. After assuring Kay that he didn't, Kay tells him that they need to get him a new uniform, as we reveal that the men in black now wear blue suits with shorts, prompting Jay to quip, "Even I can't make this look good," as the film ends. Another alternate ending mirrored the tone of the first film's cosmic zoom-out, but took a more surreal approach. Rather than the universe just being a marble, the camera pans out through alternate realities. One where Kay is young and acts like Jay, while Jay is the old crabby agent, and another where their voices are swapped. The original ending of 22 Jump Street had Janko and Smith declaring they were done and not doing any more movies before walking off into the sunset. But test audiences hated it. They wanted more movies. In response, directors Phil Lord and Christopher Miller quickly pivoted. With just 6 weeks left before release, they came up with a new idea, a rapid-fire montage of fake sequels showing Janko and Schmidt going undercover at increasingly ridiculous schools, parroting Hollywood's endless obsession with franchises and follow-ups. The entire sequence was shot in a single day, and became one of the film's most memorable highlights, but also raised an unexpected question. What would a third Jump Street film even look like, considering Lord and Miller threw the kitchen sink at the screen for the end credits, exhausting every possible sequel idea in the process? Well, that would lead to the creation of a full-blown crossover where Janko and Schmidt would join the Men in Black. The concept for MIB 23 revolved around Janko and Schmidt getting caught up in an alien conflict during their undercover mission at medical school, the first of the fake sequels teased in the 22 Jump Street end credits. This unexpected twist would pull them into the world of Men in Black, where they team up to stop an alien invasion. One particularly fun idea involved a reimagining of the iconic black suits. Instead of being standard issue, the suits would function like colored martial arts belts, earned through experience. Since Janko and Schmidt were newcomers, they'd start out in powder blue suits, highlighting their rookie status. The film would also focus entirely on Schmidt and Janko, with Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones absent from the main story. At most, they were considered for brief cameo appearances, similar to how Johnny Depp and Peter DeLuise appeared on 21 Jump Street, but the focus was squarely on the new duo navigating the Men in Black universe. As for the title, Jonah Hill suggested it be called Jump Street X Men in Black, noting that the letter X is often used when people do collaborations in fashion, art, and music. Tatum would call it the best script he's ever read for a third movie, while Miller would call it very funny, crazy, and a script that we really adored. So why didn't it happen? The problem was that both franchises, Men in Black and Jump Street, have a ton of giant producers on each side, and in order to make the film happen, all of them would have had to have reduced their producer fees, which not all were willing to do. As Tatum would jokingly say, the fees combined would have been more than the actual budget of the movie. With the Jump Street crossover shelved, Sony shifted focus to rebooting the Men in Black franchise for a younger audience, with Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson set to star. The early script to MIB International was apparently edgier and more socially relevant, originally tying the alien storyline to contemporary debates around immigration. One scrapped idea even featured a Beatles-style alien villain, 4 individuals who could merge into one formidable antagonist. However, production quickly became mired in behind-the-scenes conflict. When Executive VP of Production David Boebert, who had been overseeing the project, left Sony, a tug-of-war between director F. Gary Gray, hot off Straight Outta Compton and The Fate of the Furious, and longtime producer Walter Parks began. Without clear direction from the studio, the two clashed over the film's tone and vision. Allegedly, Sony had effectively become an absentee landlord, offering little support as tensions escalated. The instability trickled down to the set. New script pages reportedly arrived daily, leading to confusion, and even Hemsworth and Thompson retaining their own dialogue writers to help navigate the shifting material. Some sources claim Parks even stepped in to direct, as Gary attempted to leave the project multiple times, but was persuaded to stay. In the end, 2 versions of the film were apparently tested, one cut by Gray and the other by Parks. with the studio ultimately going with Park's version. Men in Black International ended up a forgettable misfire, missing the spark and originality that once defined the series, and it only underscored the missed opportunity of MIB 23, a bold, self-aware reinvention that could have taken the franchise in a fresh, exciting direction. The original Men in Black worked because it took risks and embraced the absurd. MIB 23 could have done the same, and reminded audiences why the franchise mattered in the first place. Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more of Hollywood's untold stories and unmade movies.